Again, we're going to continue on the midpoints, and we're going to just work right now for this particular video on the sun and moon midpoint, that is. And I wanted to introduce, since we have from the prior videos, we're getting a fundamental idea of the midpoints and how to use them, and to see the magic that works out from this, utilizing this techniques and other techniques as well. Now, I did also introduce the tools, and it's not all of them, but it's one of the tools is to sort the 90-degree sort, and there's another one, the 45, but that will come later. And we also utilizing the graphic ephemeraries, which is another interesting tool, which we will further elaborate. Um, this is what I think is essential. Or when you're looking at, I want to introduce another platform, which is harmonics. Harmonics in astrology is multiples of numbers, just to keep it simple without going into the technical part. But we're going to just keep it simple, and multiples of numbers like 30 degrees. And multiples of that will give you 2 times 30 will give you 60, and 3 times 30 will give you 120, which is the sextile, the trine, and the semisextile. And that's one start. But today is an important one. Now, I haven't used this in a video because this is something I want eventually people to grow in experimentation, or actually to start utilizing this technique. And you can start off with, once you found whatever method we have discussed or you have found online to get your midpoint sorts, you're going to start with the basic one, I would say the 360-degree sort, which is very familiar with all of us, of those who are using astrology. It's the average chart when you come up and you look for the printout, and you see it with the 12 houses and so forth, which equals one circle, degrees wide equals 360, right? Now, with this 360, I wanted to encourage um, people to utilize these degrees. Now, mapping your chart is a term I may have thrown out there in the past, but I wanted to just reintroduce it again. Mapping a chart, knowing the degrees of your chart, and that meaning that you know the placements of the planets and so forth, the midheaven and the ascendant and everything. Um, and I want to introduce again now, since we have that under our belt, so to speak, we're going to introduce the sun moon midpoint degree. Now, whatever degree that is, we're just going to use a random number again. We'll just say 13 degrees of any sign. So that doesn't matter which sign or placement is. If it happens to be close at degrees, fair enough. And now from there, we're going to just start, and we're going to use the 45 degrees harmonics, which is multiple of 45. So the first multiple, there are other ones, but we're just going to stick with the 45. First one, for those who are not familiar with the degree measurements of angles or aspects, as they are termed in astrology, is the 45 is the half of a square, which is 90 degrees. And that is called a semi-square. Then you add another 45 to that, and you'll get 45 plus 45 equals 90, which will give you the square. For actually beginners and forward up, intermediate, advanced is well acquainted with that term square. And then with another 45 degrees, we're going to introduce another aspect that's called the 135, and that will be the Cesar quadrant. That's the way I pronounce it. There's probably a better representation of that, but I'm familiar with that term. Just call it the 135 aspect. And the next one will be another 45, is the opposition. and that will give you those particular aspects. Now, what I've given you is four different placements as far as aspects, degrees. Now, when you use that, you can go all the way around the zodiac until you come back to the original degree. So there's going to be 45, well, making sense. Let's say there's 8 points that will occur in everybody's chart using the 45 or the eighth harmonic. So if you add it on the approaching or waxing side, is approaching from new moon to full moon. It's called increasing, but it's also decreasing after the full moon when it goes back to the dark, to the new moon. So when you add those four plus four is eight. So hence you have eight, so to speak. We all utilize this, and people can do this with their own calculators or a piece of paper and whatever, and a writing instrument, whether that might be, or just do it on your calculator. That's fine. Um, and you're just going to take 360 and divide that up by 8, and you will see it'll come out. The answer should be, if actually it is, I say because this is math and we keep that on point, it's 45. So just think of that. And if that doesn't make any sense to most people, give me a comment on the site and see what we can do with that. And I'll glad to answer and reassure you. Now, once you have that, I want to also introduce, instead of throwing out aspects, there's a term that is technical. They say, well, it's a term. Let's put it this way. It's called the Ptolemy aspects. And those are the conjunction, which I forgot to include. That's 0 degrees, starting a conjunction, but that's original point. Let's put it that point of reference is 0 degrees is conjunction. Then the next one is actually 30 degrees, which is semisextile, but they start off with not that. They usually start with just the sextile. So it's conjunction, sextile, trine, square, and opposition. So I'll go over it again, this time in order, hopefully. 0 degrees conjunction. The next one is 60 degrees sextile, 90 degrees square. Next one will be opposition. Did I get that right? No, I think I got that one wrong. But anyway, we'll go over it again. So I just want to keep it because I'm doing this off the top of my head. I should have written it down. Pardon me, folks. But those are the five: conjunction, then it's sextile, square, and trine, then opposition. So there you go: conjunction, sextile, square, trine, which is 120 degrees, and opposition 180. So conjunction is 0, and the next one would be sextile, which is 60 degrees apart from any points or planets. Then the next one is 120, which is a trine. And then the next one becomes actually um, opposition. I'm just really messing this up, folks, but pardon me, I'll have to go over one thoroughly and write it down. But if you get the gist of it, it doesn't matter if you don't get that part there. That was something I just added on to it. Now, once you have that, you're going to calculate whatever degree that is. That is your sun and moon midpoint. And just do it by, you can actually do it by computer, or you can actually have a astrologer or a friend to do it as math. It is a little bit involving at first, but once you get it, it's very simple. You just add 45 to the number, and then if it's over 30 degrees, subtract it. And then if it's still over 30 degrees, subtract it again, and that should give you the degrees. Each degree of 30 degrees minus a sign. And believe me, if it's a little confusing, it is at first, but it's not as bad as it sounds coming from me at this time. So once you get that idea, you will see, holy, actually, this 8 points, and this will happen in every this symmetry, which I think is one of the most, I think, descriptive terminology when you see this in astrology. You'll hear other terms I have mentioned: cosmology, Uranian astrology, and so forth. But synastry is a little bit more accurate. You'll start seeing patterns. Let's put it that way. So we'll just keep it simple, and we will actually work on that. If any questions, I know it's kind of a little confusing now because I'm throwing a lot at you, and the presentation of me just going off the fly. I will recommend myself to to do it next time, just specifically on what I'm just saying on the degrees. But after you add that, you'll find that there's 8 degree spots, and they'll always equal the multiple of 45 or 45 degrees from there. And if that doesn't make sense, trust me, there are ways we'll work this out. But anyway, the point is, once you discover this degrees, you can actually now see whenever the transits are, especially I want to say Uranus and Pluto and Neptune to start off. Of course, Saturn and Jupiter, but Jupiter moves a lot faster. And then, of course, Mars is trigger. But all the planets I referred to will trigger or activate those degrees. Looking back in life and see if you can place those degrees with uh, phenomena or events in your life. And you'll be amazed at just seeing how they coordinate with certain things. Oh, and it could be simple as like this here: um, purchasing a house, a home, right? Um, Relocating from another place. It can be also going to a foreign country and so forth, things of that nature. And you'll get to see, or birth of a child too. And these are certain things you'll see. Now, once you have those degrees, we can transcribe them into dates on the calendar and see where people are born near. Give a day before that day of that degree. Let's say, for argument's sake, 20 degrees of the sign, or 20 degrees. Let's go with a sign that's really from Aries. Um, and you find that on the 10th of April corresponds to approximately, depending on the rate of the sun, in that date. So people born on the 9th, the 10th, or 11th, you will see that would be a point that interacts with your sun and moon. See if that works out for you. And this goes with family members. This goes romantically. It can go with business. And again, I always encourage to broaden the scope. You can look at dates of states, which we can now do a lot more now, just at your fingertips, just by searching online and see, even if the origin falls to a country that was formulated as best as possible. It don't have to be always matching, but it may be exactly, it may conjunct your sun moon midpoint, or it may aspect it in the eighth harmonic. So I encourage you to look at that. Now, lastly but not least, eclipses as well will bring this. Also, look at the eclipse and see if any eclipses happen to those trigger points or activation points. Very fascinating way. So I think I'll end this here. Any questions later on, just give me a note or so forth like that, and we'll go further into acknowledging any questions that I confer that I may have felt. I know that I kind of like screwed up on the on the degrees thing because I'm doing this top of it, but I'll have it written down in front of me because I'm visualizing at this point. But it's second nature when you're looking at this stuff. It becomes a practice. Do not be discouraged. Don't feel it's daunting. There's a lot because we're keeping it simple. We're just working on one midpoints, the sun and moon. Now, there are others that I would encourage to bring in. I'll give a list of that too. So, again, I'm going to give you a resource, a book that's for the, not for the faint of heart, but this book here is from, or actually books, I should say, is from an author. Her name is Martha Lang Westcott. And I'll repeat that again, Martha Lang Westcott. Now, you can use her books as well. I mean, I would encourage that. And just take your time. It's just like sipping on some tea, pardon me. You're going to look at that, and her has her beautiful website that you can encourage to this kind of peruse, so to speak, her site and see if things make sense. And if questions, I mean, you can hopefully I can elaborate on that because it depends on there. Of course, the best source is to actually this encourage you just to get one of her books, and then you can really get digging deep, so to speak. So on that note, again, um, thank you for your time and listening, and happy hunting as far as midpoints. And keep in mind these are one aspects um, that you can look at. So there is a term I'm going to get into with the progressed moon, which can carry on another timing technique. But these things will come in good time. So on that note, everybody, peace.